We have so many stories in our lives, but our stories are not always heard. On the Hear My True Story podcast, we tell our own true stories.
Before the white car backed, our head teacher had scattered. Looking at him, I could only see his tie that was flying backwards, waving at us, and he disappeared in thin air.
I want to share my life story. I want to share my voice with the people because I know that just a small joke I can tell through this podcast, it will make someone smile.
When you ask me what I fear most in life, I would definitely respond to you and say it's fear itself.
We are fighting for togetherness. We are fighting for equal rights. We are fighting to end injustice.
You don't have to be a storyteller or writer because, guess what? Life writes the best stories.
Hear my true story.
And in the second situation, we were in this football club, and even in the first situation, there was no other parent seeing the situation and coming up to help us or to stay there. People they didn't see the situation, and the mother which was next to me, she didn't want to see it. She didn't want to come there and ask the same questions I asked.
I look forward to coming to Hamburg, and maybe I take a trip to that danger zone. And guess what? I'm sure they'll stop me.
Yeah, beware of the danger zone.
They will stop me. I'm always being stopped.
This is your favorite time of the week with your number one podcast.
Hear my true story.
Welcome back again to Hear My True Story podcast. It is me, your host, Otako, and I'm always excited to have you every week on this podcast. Yes, for those who are joining us for the first time, this is Hear My True Story podcast. And for those who listen to this wonderful podcast, well, we are happy to have you again on this episode. So what is so special about this week? It is that we continue our conversation with our previous guest from the previous episode as we talked about racial profiling. So we continue again this week with the same topic, racial profiling. In part one, we had a lot from our guest Gundi as she shared her personal reflections as a white individual from a privileged background. Remember, as we said in the previous episode, that the issue of racial profiling is so big and very important, and it's affecting our society here in Europe, or maybe in Germany, to be specific. So we cannot only leave it to be talked about by the people who are affected directly by this issue, but we can also have open conversations with other people who are not directly affected by racial profiling firsthand. That's what I'm talking about. That's why we have our guest to share our story, our experiences, and also our reflection as a white person. Now, in part two, we want to dive even deeper and make it interactive. We will explore strategies for talking about racial profiling with other white individuals, and we will also discuss the responsibilities that we have as individuals in dismantling this harmful practice. So, my dear listeners, it is your chance to join us in this conversation, to think about how you navigate discussions on this topic with others and consider the responsibilities we share in addressing racial profiling. Anyways, without wasting your time, I want to take you direct to our wonderful conversation. And I hope that you enjoy this episode, and we can maybe later on hear from you by leaving us a comment, or maybe by reaching us on our email here at hearmytruestory.com and let us know your own view. Well, I want to say it is time now that we get into our conversation, and you hear a lot from our personal experiences, from our personal true stories as we tackle these difficult issues in our society. Thank you for always supporting Hear My True Story podcast. I hope you enjoyed this conversation.
With you every week. Hear My True Story.
So, you are welcome on this wonderful podcast, Hear My True Story. Before I start with the conversation, I would like you maybe to introduce yourself to our dear listeners so that they get to understand who are they listening to and who is behind the computer and that microphone.
Thank you very much, Otako. My name is Gundi, and I'm from Hamburg. I'm a white person, if you want to describe it, and I live here with my 10-year-old son. I'm a mother. I'm alone with my son, and I'm educating my son all on my own. And we are living here in St. Pauli, which is close to St. Pauli, which is the touristic area of the red light district, also the so-called red light district of Hamburg. And it's also called district, a dangerous district, but we hear about this later. So I live close to this district, and my son is going to school in this district and in the St. Pauli school and elementary school. And me, I'm working in a NGO and in a NGO who's working with human rights defenders.
Welcome to a brand new episode. Hear My True Story.
But to move on, you talked about how when you talk to this, have you had a conversation with any other white person to talk about this racial profiling with someone who has not maybe recognized the problem? And what was your feeling? Because for me, from my position, when I speak with someone who's not informed about the issue of racial profiling and is from the white majority community that is living here in Germany, they go into defensive.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about you as a white person, speaking to a white person about this issue of racial profiling.
Yeah, I'm living in a bubble, but I'm not living in a political bubble with left people. I'm also living in a bubble of parents, and I'm living in a bubble of parents of football in a football club. And in the second situation, we were in this football club, and even in the first situation, there was no other parent seeing the situation and coming up to help us or to stay there. People they didn't see the situation, and the mother which was next to me, she didn't want to see it. She didn't want to come there and ask the same questions I asked. And in the second situation, we were 5 people. There were 1 people of color. There were a trainee, football trainee, trainee. I don't know if
football trainer,
but it was a girl. And there was me with a baby in my arms. There was 1 more mother and 1 more father. So we were 5, and there were about 50 parents close to the situation, but people don't want to see it. And so then afterward, I was like in the first time where my blood pressure was high. So I asked them, why didn't you come over, all of you? I don't know. I had the baby in my arm. I couldn't do so many things, but you could have. And so then they said, yeah, this was certainly a question of BTM, so it's Betäubungsmittelgesetz. It's about drug control, and they start to use excuses, and they say things like, okay, yeah, it was no sense to control this person, because that you control one person, you take them to the police station, and then he comes free again. There's no sense. This doesn't. There's even no sense to fight drug the drug selling situation, and so people are telling things, but they don't want to be. Most of them don't want to get engaged, and then there's people who are engaged and who don't seem to be that reflected, who are like me, very, very rageous, who are rageous and who are so angry that they can't react, angry against the police that they can't react. They are really, they don't know what to do. And now, and this was after the whole situation. I talked to many people, and then one person said to me, the best thing to do is raise your handy and film the situation, take a film of the situation, and when the police is coming up to you to try to get the handy, stop that filming, and if they start again to get violent, start filming again. But so that you make them learn that that there's that this will be documented, and this puts me up to another situation of a father of one of the football friends of my son, who is coming from Turkey, but he is Kurdish, and they came from a funeral one Sunday, and he and his wife, both had a bicycle, and he tried to get into the S-Bahn with their bicycle, but then the S-Bahn controller said, no, you have no right to get in here, because it's too crowded, because there was a football match. And so he said, yes, but the other security told me to go here. And so then the security started to be very angry, aggressive against him, and police came, and they put him to his knees, and the same thing that happened in the football match. And there was one woman in the S-Bahn who filmed the whole situation. And then there was a kind of documentary that it was not the so-called migrant person who started the fight. No, it was the security and the police who started the struggle. So I don't know if I answered your question. I think there's many people who are courageous, who nowadays who react in a good way, and to take documents and to use social media to spread that it's not that's not justice what's going on in the street. but there's many people who are ashamed, and people I talked to were also ashamed or embarrassed, and they didn't want to get into the situation. As you said, they start to excuse, or they start to look for excuses for the police also.
Yeah, I really understand what you're talking about, and you have answered the question very well. Because there are people who are willing to take in a step, they do take in, but because they are really looking at a system that is already socially created to racial profile people, to discriminate certain groups of people, and that makes you have this kind of hunger, and you are not able to maybe to control it, and then you can also just bust out. And then there are people who are seeing the situation that just say they blind themselves. We are not here. We don't know what's happening. There are those ones who are there. And for me, I will see you have painted the picture very well. For someone who's listening to this wonderful conversation, can really understand what are the perspectives. Because as a BPOC person living in Germany, and I find myself in such a situation, at times I think people don't care about me. But then when I hear another perspective of someone saying, okay, maybe there are those who are running away because they don't care about me, but there are those who want to really get in, and then there are those who get in, and then at times I feel like, okay, now this one has come to help, but I think it's now hard for me to express, to find my justice when it goes on. But what I can say, filming is also a very beautiful thing because it protects someone's life sometimes. Of course, sometimes it doesn't, like what happened in France. Someone chose a point to just film, and a young man was killed. If someone stepped in at that point, maybe this person would have had their life. So I think all decisions, I don't know, but I think all decisions cost something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All decisions cost something. You're right, but the idea of filming is a kind of neutral weapon, because it always was a kind of neutral weapon, because you can't change the situation behind the camera. You see it. You only can you can only see it. You can't change the perspectives if it's not a false video, but usually you can see it easily that how the situation is going on.
Yeah, that's the thing.
That's a good point. And the other one, what I think there's two kinds of. I think many people are in this typical situation: can't see, can't hear, can't talk, or don't want to see, don't want to hear, don't want to talk, because they are so afraid about if I say something, the violence would turn against me, maybe.
Yeah, but that you mentioned it already in your conversation, how the society media has portrayed a certain group of minority people, migrants, how it is being portrayed. If someone is not from that minority group, they may feel like, oh, maybe I don't need to go in, because this is what I see all the time in media. When they talk about drugs, when they're teaching people about drugs, they'll bring someone with a migration background. I'm talking about things that are taught way back from school. Then they come into training people. When they give examples of drugs, they will bring people with migration background. They bring people with from the minority communities of Germany. So that makes it difficult to change certain society. I'm not defending anything, but I'm saying this is really trained from the start. So if we need to change this, then we need to go back again to the start of training that no, drugs is a problem for anyone, regardless of your race.
Yeah, and you have to see who are the people who live from drug selling. Usually they are the powerful people are the white. I don't know, but if you see the people who are driving their Mercedes and bringing drugs, I don't know, they are the white big capitalist people. But I think they don't see the other people's behind. They don't see the
they deal with the problem, but they're not finding out the right people.
Yeah, you know what I mean. I think they in the media they found already the picture, or they only reproduce the picture of small small criminals, so-called criminals, who are always people of color, but they don't paint the picture of the real violent criminals or the hard criminals who are not people of color, for example.
Yeah, of course, the big drug dealers who are not people of color, who are not the small, who are the big fish in the ocean.
Yeah. And the big fish in the ocean, I don't know why people are not addressing the big fish in the ocean.
Yeah.
And this is the same for the police.
Yeah.
Why don't they address against the big fish in the ocean?
Yeah, that's for the police. But then that doesn't go for someone who's working in a train. I mean, like for me, when I go to the train, and then I'm singled out as a BPOC, a BIPOC person living in Germany. That also makes it difficult for me to understand the situation. But at the end of the day, it makes us real to live in a situation where we need people. We need how do you call it, collaborations. You need like all of us, regardless of our race, where we come from, which migration background. If someone is listening and they are reflective, then they can take a step. Whether you choose to take a video, whether you choose to speak out, whether you choose to confront someone, it can be really helpful for anyone who's being in this situation. Yeah, that's my understanding of this, how to fight a system that is really racial profiling people.
Yeah, and I think we have to fight against the taboo of not talking about these situations because we are ashamed.
Yep.
This doesn't help us. If we are ashamed, we have to talk about these situations.
Enjoying this episode? Leave a review now.
Hear my true story.
You talked about us saying that we should fight the thing of not speaking.
Yeah.
So then I come in and say, okay, can you maybe share some of the steps that you yourself that you take that makes you to speak out?
Yes, of course. Because
so
I have a child now.
You don't have fear.
I have a child and I have to speak out loud because I don't want my child to live in a society who's not respecting every human being as a human being. And before judging a person, thinking about maybe this person has a story, and this is the story, has a point in his life which took him to react, to be like the person he is now, and to respect also people who are in the street, because people didn't choose to be in the street, and it can happen to everybody. We have to be humilious. We have to be thankful that we are healthy, or because things can turn out from one minute to another. you can have an accident, or I don't know, something you can lose a person you really love, and this turns you crazy. So if everybody could be able to be more empathetic, and to when the people watch, or when they see a person in the street, to think, okay, this person is a person like you and me, and maybe he has a story to tell. He has a story to tell why he's there. Maybe it's not his fault to be there, and he doesn't do harm to nobody being there. And for example, this is the way my son, and usually children I know, are viewing, this is their way of seeing the world. They don't judge people in the street. We educate them to judge people in the street, or to judge people, migrants, or people who are not in their neighborhood, or not living, or not going to the same school. I don't know. This is not the people, the children's point of view. The parents are, or the parents or the teachers. We educate them to lose confidence, or to lose to not trust into these people in the streets, for example. And this is one thing why I speak it out now, because I recognize these injustice situations much more when I'm with my child than, well, when I'm alone. I see these situations and I intervene, and also I always did so, because I was always feeling injustice is not good, and makes me angry. But I was always, I'm still helpless. So the only thing I can do is to talk about these situations.
Yeah.
To maybe other people could stand up with me, or do so, ask questions. I don't know.
Yeah, I really get that. I mean, for me, because of time, before we end this conversation, I just want to share with you my feeling that I experienced when I was racial profiled. I was at immigration, and we were in a line with other artists that were coming from Europe, Asia, and I was the one who was from Africa. And then at the airport in Manchester, I think it was London, going to London. I was going to Manchester, and then I was singled out, and I was removed from the line. And they left all people to leave. But because I was the only black African, then all my team was left to move in front to go and check in, so that they enter, so that they go to London. And for me, so that they go to UK. But me, I was singled out. I had all the papers, had the passport, the visas. But what happened? The group of artists from Asia, Europe, refused to be checked in so that they can enter United Kingdom. They said, we can only go there until they tell us why they removed this fellow artist of ours who was coming from Africa. So the moment the entire team refused to go to United Kingdom because of me, I was happy, because people stood with me. That made me feel so happy as a black artist traveling from one country to another. I started feeling that there are people who are there to be there for me in case I'm singled out. of a line, or maybe I'm singled out in a restaurant. They were always there for me. This experience made me feel like if I'm in a train and someone comes up for me and say, why are you doing this to this person? What's happening? That makes me strong. That's my experience. That's my feeling. I don't know about other people, but I say the actions that your son took, just tell him that's a great move. To always step out and speak for those who are being put in a very situation because of their race, color, maybe migration background. And thank you too for always taking a step. It's good.
Yeah, and if it's a small step, maybe it's not so small for the people, for the person.
I mean, for me, sorry.
Yeah, because it's so easy. It was very easy to react like your colleagues that did, not to go into there was no lose for them to stay out of the line, you know.
Yeah. I mean, there's no lose for someone to speak out. You don't lose your mouth. You don't lose anything. You just speak out. But it's a training that someone trains. So if your son is being trained to such actions, take actions, that is what we wish for every child. Because when we are in the kitas, I work in kindergarten, we encourage kids to speak, to ask, to be independent, to speak. And in that small age, they speak just like you said. They are really open. They ask questions. They go to anyone and they want to know. But then the society will teach them something different. Parents, school, system, the internet, the media, we influence the child's understanding of society.
Yeah, and there's something that we call in German gesunder Menschenverstand. It's what gesunder Menschenverstand, maybe how can we translate it? It's a common sense, you know, a common sense, but it's more that people naturally know what's right and wrong. A common sense, you know, and and children have even a better common sense than we have.
Yeah.
So maybe if we trust our common sense, we would be solidary. We would use solidarity as an instrument to predict racial profiling, for example.
Yeah. Racial profiling and all these other prejudices that happen in life.
Yes.
Yeah. Anyway, our dear listeners, it is really a big conversation and cannot be finished in 1 hour or in 2 hours. Yeah. But that's why, I mean, for me, it really makes a good chance for my listeners to hear another perspective. Maybe that listeners who are with a white privilege, or maybe they are white Germans living in Germany, or maybe a white European. It's good for you to listen to someone like you, how they take actions to support those who are being affected by racial profiling, being affected by discrimination. You can also step out, talk to people who are being affected, ask them what would make them happy, as in what would they like if they're in a situation like that? How would they feel if someone came up to intervene when they are in a problem? Such actions can really support us to bring change, to bring a positive change with the solidarity. I mean, they say fearing is not a solution, and not speaking is also not a solution. Any step, even just one question, can change someone's life. That's what I would like to just say. Do you have anything else that you would like to share with our listeners that have been listening to this conversation before we say bye?
I just say I want to thank you that you listened to my story, and it was I wanted to bring up more, not only my story but my son's story, and I think I thank you very much, and I learned a lot about what we can do against injustice in society from you now within the interview. That helped me a lot.
Oh, thank you so much. I thought I was just asking questions and listening to you, but that makes me feel happy to get such a wonderful feedback.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. I look forward to coming to Hamburg, and maybe I take a trip to that danger zone. And guess what? I'm sure they'll stop me.
Yeah, beware of the danger zone.
They will stop me. They will stop me. I'm always being stopped. There's a time when I was talking with one of the colleagues I work with at work and told them, the police has been stopping me because of my bicycle. I didn't have a reflector. More than twice, 3 times. I was like, what? Do people stop people with a bicycle? I said, yeah, I'm Otako. I am from Uganda. So anything can make you be stopped.
Yes,
Yeah.
of course.
Yeah.
If you have no reflector.
Yeah.
That's really...
Anything can make you be stopped. There's a time when some Ugandan friends of mine visited me, and then we entered a bus, 3 Ugandans. And then I told them, wait, someone is going to come and check us for tickets. It didn't pass a minute. Someone came and said, show me your tickets. And other people are not asked. So I like experiencing this, but what makes it special is when I tell stories from what I experience. And that's how I say thank you for being really open to come and share a story for your son, but also that you experienced, which makes a story from you and your son. Not everyone can really want to share their personal experience. They like keeping it. Thank you so much for being a wonderful guest.
Thank you so much. It was really a pleasant to be here.
Yeah, one guest that was not there for our dear listeners is the son, 10 years old, but send my greetings to your son and tell him that we are really happy to have a super young man looking forward to fight for those who are also in his age bracket.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And just one thing to mention, I have to excuse myself for being late more than 1 hour. And that's with the German Pünktlichkeit.
German people keep time. Unless it's the German Deutschbahn. Sometimes it doesn't keep time. But it's good you found me. Me in Uganda, we don't keep time. We are really relaxed. We go with how life takes us. That's the beautiful thing. Being a Ugandan.
Yeah, and then you were so friendly to mention that you're waiting for more than 1 hour.
Yeah, I'm always relaxed. I wait. I've not yet got into the culture of being a real German. That time is time. I wait. Yeah. So anyway, our dear listeners, thank you so much for joining us this wonderful week. It has been me, Otako, with your guest,
Gundi.
Yeah, thank you for listening to this wonderful episode. And this is the end of our conversation on racial profiling with our guest. Yeah, we are really happy that we try to go deep into this conversation, and basing on our personal experiences and reflections, we try to gain insights into the issue of racial profiling. I mean, it is really clear racial profiling is a systematic problem that affects marginalized communities in profound ways. However, as we have seen as we have heard in today's episode, it is really crucial it is really important for individuals from all backgrounds to engage in this conversation, challenge misconceptions, and to actively stand as allies. So, to move forward, let us educate ourselves about racial profiling, and also what you can do as a listener is to amplify the voices of those affected. Remember, when you speak out, that brings something that is maybe positive for the other person being affected, because change starts with each of us. Thank you, my dear listeners, and thank you, our dear guest, for sharing your story and shedding light on this important topic. We hope this episode has really sparked some meaningful reflections and inspired actions among our dear listeners. And in case you are there and you have had this wonderful episode and you are like, oh my God, beginning today, I need to also speak out, mainly for those who are not directly affected by racial profiling, you have a role to play in dismantling these systematic barriers that have been created to amplify or to make racial profiling a daily thing. As always, I encourage you, my dear listeners, to continue the conversation, share your thoughts, and maybe support organizations, support people who are really fighting towards racial justice. And because together we can do more to bring an equitable and inclusive society. Well, thank you for listening to Hear My True Story podcast. It has been me, Otako, your host, and I hope to have you next week. Same time, same date, same day. And for those who are listening for the first time, you can follow us on all podcast streaming platforms. And for those who have subscribed, thank you so much. And for those who have not subscribed to this wonderful podcast, you can subscribe to our podcast from your favorite podcast streaming platform. For those who like the content that we create, you can go to our website, hearmytruestory.com, and you can also be a member through subscription. Daily to contribute, you can support creation of content for this wonderful podcast. Thank you so much for always being part of Hear My True Story podcast. Yeah, I would like to say bye for now.
We not only have voices for a podcast, but also faces for YouTube. Don't miss your next episode. Hear My True Story.
Thank you for listening to our podcast, Music by Edwin Matovo, hosted and produced by Otako. Subscribe to our podcast for more stories and visit us on our website, hearmytruestory.com, for more stories. All the links are listed in the show notes of this podcast.